Now, a number of analysts have likened America's attack on Iran to Putin's war in Ukraine in the sense that it was based on an illusion, that we're mired, that we were overconfident and thought we could wrap this up in a few days. Or do you think that's an exaggerated comparison?
I don't think that comparison makes sense. I think it looks similar, a great power going against a smaller power thinking that they're going to roll over, but it doesn't happen. But the basic causal mechanism is very different. Putin was under no illusion that Ukraine is not a threat to Russia. Like in his mind, this is the end line. I have to draw a line in the sand. You know, he has seen for 20 years the inexorable march of NATO. You remember when he met George W. Bush, and he was actually quite happy about it. There's a whole chapter in my book on that, how he was the first person to come to Bush, and he welcomed the change of NATO to a political institution focusing on democracy, because he thought that fundamentally the idea of Russia is going to go away from NATO's mind, and then Russia and US are going to be on the same side, if not in an alliance, but against Islamism and all that. You know, obviously, again, he's an opportunist. They were fighting a war against Chechnya. That was a good way of, ensuring that America doesn't care about Chechnya. So all of those things to say, he was under no illusion that NATO is a changed character now and Russia is still in NATO's mind. The Iran war on our side is baffling. Iran is not a threat to the United States or the interests of the United States. The entire Iranian grand strategy for the last 15 years was to fund proxies, and Hezbollah and Hamas and Houthis. That failed. After October 7th, Israel literally wiped off, their major, forward positioning. And obviously then, Israel went too far and, it's like a shark, cannot stop swimming, But fundamentally, the Iranian grand strategy failed. Iran is a shadow of what it used to be, or what it was considered to be in 10, 15 years back. Imagine the surge in Iraq and how massive the threat of Iran was. That's gone. Those days are gone. That being said, it is also a country of 90 million people surrounded by mountains. There was never going to be a land invasion of Iran without like 1 million American soldiers, trying to topple the regime. The people are not interested in toppling the regime. In fact, we have seen a rally around the flag effect in Iran. So it's a complicated scenario where Iran is a power in its own neighborhood, but it is not a hegemonic threat in the region. Now, from the United States side, I think the Venezuela intervention went to our head. I think we realized that we can do that in Venezuela. We could do the exact same thing in Iran. Now, that's obviously is a fundamentally causal mistake. I mean, there is a whole bunch of people who are like, oh, Israel dragged us to war. Potentially, I don't know. But that doesn't, take away the blame of our own, stupidity. We thought that Iran would be like Venezuela, whereas Venezuela is in the Western Hemisphere and it's like a extremely fragile state. Iran isn't. It is, at the end of the day, a theocracy. A theocracy has got a bureaucracy which works for it. It's ideologically a lot more coherent than Venezuela. Those are our decisions. We made those decisions.
It is an ideologically militant regime, which Trump seems to have underestimated.
I don't think it's militant. I think it's a survivalist regime. It's definitely ideological, but its fundamental aim is survival. From the perspective of Iran, they understand that if we go, so the major three factors in the Middle East, in my perspective, was Israel, obviously, a strong, powerful state, as Kenneth Walsh wrote. Part of the reason the Israelis, think that Iranians and the other countries are threats to them, but from the Iranian side, it is the Israeli power which makes them, it's kind of like the same spiral. The fact that Israel can go and bomb Osirak in Iraq or Syria with impunity without any fight back, it's not like the 70s, right? That incentivizes the other powers to be in a spiral mode and build up their own power, and that creates this entire security dilemma. The other factor is Iran. The Iranians thought that we cannot compete with the Israelis, we cannot compete with the Americans, obviously. What we can do is have proxies and forward presence and fund the proxies. That strategy has failed. And the final, power, which is actually the true great power in the region, is Turkey, right? We are now seeing a scenario where the Iranian-Israeli balancing is collapsing. There has always been like two phases of war. There has been no decision made now. Nothing has been, changed by force. And I don't think the president is interested in a ground operation. Otherwise, we would have been seeing forced movements. I think everyone in this administration understands how difficult that might be. There are people who are cheering it up in the media. It is impossible to do a regime change in Iran without a catastrophic war. That is not happening. I think even the Israelis understand that. So what's happening now is we are seeing this constant operational stalemate between Israelis and Iranians, whereas Turkish power is rising, and then Israelis and Turkish power, they're trying to balance each other, with the Israelis kind of having like a tactical alignment with the Greeks and in Cyprus and Somaliland and Turkey with Syria and Lebanon. So I think that is now creating a new set of problem where that might, tomorrow be the major. And at that point in time, we'd be in real bind because Turkey is a treaty ally and Israel is obviously Israel. So, at that point in time, we don't really know what to do.